Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. Welcome back to the channel on this Wednesday morning. Yeah, Newcastle United, unfortunately, 2-0 defeat to Manchester City last night. But you know what? I don't feel down. There's a bit of frustration there, of course there is, but I don't feel down because we didn't play badly. All I would say for that game, my initial thoughts before I get into it in more depth, is it was a game of fine margins. We had plenty of opportunities to get a positive result from that game, but the fine margins at this level against an elite team like Manchester City, if you don't take them in these latter stages of competitions, there's a chance you will be punished. And unfortunately, that's just what happened on the night. I mean, we all felt so up for that match pre-match. I said that in my video when I was walking across town to meet my mates yesterday. I was so excited for it. It's a third semi-final in 4 seasons, a chance to get to a second consecutive League Cup final, a third in 4 seasons, which is unheard of for us, especially in this competition. But it was an exciting tie as well. Look, it was always going to be tough. The remaining 4 teams, Arsenal and Manchester City, and then Chelsea. Chelsea and Arsenal play tonight. We probably drew the hardest of the 3 teams remaining. Look, I know Arsenal are top of the Premier League at the moment, top of the Champions League phase, and also in the FA Cup 4th round in the semi-finals of this competition. But I still feel Manchester City are the better team and they will reel them in. But yeah, on those games like last night, you have to take your chances. I mean, I wasn't shocked with the team that Etihad put out because Sandro Tonali and Harvey Barnes dropped out. But understandable because they both played 120 minutes on Saturday. So that was totally understandable. And the fact, I've got to applaud Sven Botman, by the way. Sven Botman, I felt, had a really good game. Look, I know that Semenyo got in between him and Gordon for the opening goal, but I felt Botman, coming just back from injury, 120 minutes Saturday and 99 minutes yesterday, he had a very good game. So I want to really praise Sven Botman. You can see he probably had a bit of wind behind him, behind his sails. He was in a good mood, in a good place. Now he's got his new contract sorted in 2030. He's now committed for the next 4 seasons at least. So that's excellent news on that front. But yeah, we started the game well. We had that early chance in 5 minutes. Bruno got it to Joe Linton. Joe Linton managed to wriggle free from a challenge, just poked it to Gordon. Gordon's first time pass was just whipped out to the right to Jacob Murphy. And Murphy, a player who can frustrate, he frustrated last night, but he's a player who plays on instinct. When he has time to think, he struggles, but he put that first time ball in for Wissa last night. And Wissa, you'd think a player of his quality who scored so many goals for Brentford last season, what was it, 19 non-penalty goals, would have buried that. And goals change games. If Wissa hadn't blazed that over the bar, we looked at footage at half-time, someone had it, to see if it took a bobble, but no, he just blazed it over the bar. And it's moments like that you've got to take against teams like Manchester City. Look, Gordon had another opportunity. He got inside away from Nunez, whipped a lovely ball in. Joe Linton just didn't get enough connection on it to direct it on goal, and it went wide of the post. Gordon then ran at Nunez again, and he drew a yellow card from him and a foul. So, but you're thinking Gordon could have got in the game a bit more. But a mate made a point at half-time that when Bruno's playing and there's no Tonali, he tends to go to the right a lot more than the left. But when Tonali comes on, it is mixed up and Gordon sees it more. And I was watching that second half, and that did seem to be the case. But yeah, I don't know why that is. But look, I've got to admit, Manchester City done a job on Gordon. They really marked him out the game. Anytime he got it, there was like 2 men doubling up on him. But I've got to praise the team as well. Like I said, I'm not down. I'm not down. The team played well. It wasn't for the want to try. And the fact that they went again, they took the game to City at times. They put in a lot of effort, a lot of legs. And it's just those moments where you've got to be clinical against a top team like Manchester City, because they're streetwise, they've been here before, they know how to win trophies. And I know we're defending a trophy, but that's our first domestic one in 70 years, first in 56 years. And we're against the 8-time winners of this competition, the team who won it 4 times between 2018 and 2021. That first half, I've got to praise the team though, because we limited City. Nick Pope, who I can't blame for either goal. Yeah, he didn't have much to do. A couple of decent saves. He made a good save from Cherky second half that went through his legs and somehow out. But other than that, he didn't have much to do, especially first half. The main chance they had, the flashed across the face of the Gallagher. No one was there to tap it in. And again, I've got to praise the team as well. Look, I know we've lost 2-0. But Erling Haaland hasn't scored against her again. His only goal against her was when he pulled it back to 3-2 in his first season for City, 22-23 in the 3-3 here. Since then, he hasn't scored against her home or away, and he still hasn't scored since before Christmas. So I've got to praise Malik Chow and Sven Botman there. They've done a good job on him. But then second half, you're thinking, can we come out? Well, we'll have the win behind with sails. Eddie Howe's give them a praise at half-time for how they've dealt with City. They might have had a lot of possession, but we've kept them at bay, limited their chances. And we had opportunities at the second half to take the lead. But again, it comes down to that clinical edge. That ball that came in, Yuan Wissa, he managed to stretch his neck muscles and direct it towards the far corner. But unfortunately, James Trafford, who I don't get the one greedy bastard chance, I've got to say this, because City activated a buyback clause, so I don't get that towards him. He didn't have a choice. He had to go back to Manchester City. So I don't understand that, but he made a great save. He had to save one of his best games for us. He made a great save to claw that away from the top corner. But it's just one of those where you think you need to take your chances. And then Jeremy Doku elbowed Jacob Ramsey, who I've got to praise Jacob Ramsey. Jacob Ramsey had a very good game for me. He was composed and calm under pressure. He managed to wriggle free from tight spaces. I felt he used the ball well, even though he was a little sloppy at times. Had one of his best games for her. I know looking on his body of work so far, you can't say that's too difficult to do, but that was certainly his best game. I want to praise him. And Joe Linton added that bark and bite and aggressiveness that we needed. Yeah, he wasn't creative as such, but he broke things up. He was in people's faces. That was a fact when him and O'Reilly clashed and he got a yellow card. But just going back to the first half, though, before their goal, I just feel like they got away with a lot. Bernardo Silva, he's a dirty little player, him, I've got to say. Like, I know the streetwise, but a lot of tactical fouls. It took until about the sixth foul till he got a yellow card from Chris Kavanagh, the Manc-based referee. He got away with a lot. Phil Foden, you breathe around Phil Foden, you inhale or exhale, and he goes down. And what's his haircut all about? Can I just say that he's a quality player? Of course he is. He'll be key for England this summer at the World Cup, but his hair looks like Mr. Bean cut it in that episode when he stuck a bowl around his head. And he has tram lines. I mean, how old are you, mate? 12. But, yeah, Foden went down at anything. They got away with a lot first half. There was a lot of fouls, especially on their right-hand side on Gordon. They were doing a job on Lewis Hall. Lewis Hall, outstanding. My man of the match by a country mile. His composure under pressure, the way he carries the ball. Honestly, I think if we got another left back in, he could honestly play left midfield. I know he used to play there before we signed him for Chelsea. But Lewis Hall's outstanding, the way he carries the ball, the way he just runs between players. And under pressure, there was one chance where an attack broke down. James Trafford got it. He hit a really long kick straight down the middle of the pitch. Haaland against Hall. Hall just brought it down. You'd think would he hit it? Brought it down, turned Haaland, carried it away and played it to a man on the right-hand side of the pitch. Honestly, he was excellent, Lewis Hall, all game. He wasn't just on the left as well. He was drifting over to the right. It's like I wish we had two Lewis Halls. He was that good. Outstanding player. It's honestly surprises there's more people linked with Tino Livramento than Lewis Hall. But it helps that he's a Newcastle fan. We'll have to keep him at all costs. When Doku elbowed Ramsey, he was off the pitch. They took advantage of it. Doku, he was a little bit too easy to get past Barnes. He put in the area. Bernardo Silva helped it on. And then Botman and Gordon let Semenyo get between them. And yes, it's controversial, Rule 6.4, where he's been allowed to play after playing for Bournemouth in the second round back in August. But look, you have to get on with it. We might benefit from that someday. I don't like that rule, but look, it's just happenstance. It's coincidental that he happens to sign for a team we're playing in the semi-finals and they've took advantage of that and he scored. But when they got that first goal, it looked like it knocked we a bit. Any momentum that we had been halted. City dominated the ball a lot. Not like they were doing too much, but they had a lot of possession. But then we had a couple of corners that came in. There was a chance that Botman tried to head down and then it got kicked off one of their players for a corner. Another couple of corners came in, nothing to fruition, but then 6 minutes later, look at Semenyo had got his second goal. Corner came in, it was deep, and Semenyo backheeled it in, but then it went to VAR, a lengthy VAR call, I must say, 5 minutes. There was a lad a row behind us, and somehow he had footage in the stadium at ITV, and we were looking at the replays at the time. And yes, it was marginal. I can see why it was disallowed. Looked like his foot was off, but normally you'd give the advantage to the attacker. So I do feel City were unlucky that got disallowed. That's without wearing goggles, I have to be honest. It was a controversial one, but when that goal was disallowed, I wasn't complaining. That was our reprieve, our get out of jail free card. You're like, right, the crowd was up for it. They celebrated like it was a goal. We all did. And then it's like, right, can we push on? We can get something out of this game. Shooting down the hill. The Gallagher normally sucks the ball into the net. We had opportunities, like I said. The earlier one, when Wissard had it clawed away, I forgot to mention that Bruno had a follow-up that hit the post. Then there was the ball in for Voltemada. He just couldn't get enough connection on it, and it went wide of the far post. And then you had Tonali's effort. If Elanga managed to cut it back after Tonali came on, his left-footed shot just fizzed wide of the post, and you're just thinking, we're applying the pressure here, we're turning the screw. Couple of nervy moments for them. Trafford hit a ball out of play into these stands, and then he played it to someone on his right, and they tried to play it back, and it went out for a corner. You just felt it was uncharacteristic of City. We were turning the screw, applying the pressure, but then a massive blow at the end. Look, at 1-0, I know we're recorded City. I said that in my video yesterday. We're last 11 games there, we've lost them all by an aggregate of 37-3. In the last 5 games there under Eddie Howe, we've lost all 5 to an aggregate of 14-0. But you're thinking at 1-0, you're kind of still in the tie, even though I said we had to really go to City with a lead. A draw, maybe something could happen. A 1-0 deficit, you may be clinging to the fact that we've only scored 2 goals there in 9 years. Well, record there is abysmal, as I've already covered many a time. But you're just thinking at 1-0, we maybe could have got a lead, spawned it extra time, and maybe got some things in our favour. But City normally always score at home, no matter who they're playing, especially against us. So now 2-0 at the end from Cherki. They got the throw in on the left-hand side. Lovely play between Semenyo and Aït-Nouri, little 1-2s. Then it came back to Aït-Nouri, a 1-2 with Cherki, and the Frenchman buried it under Pope. And that was the hammer blow, I think, to this tie. Look, I'm normally glass half full. I'm normally optimistic as they come, but in all honesty, I think that goal has killed the tie because City always normally score 1, like I've said. So that means to even take it extra time, and we're looking at, we'll have to score 3 goals. To even win it, we need 4 goals. In our record at City, I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. I just think is the case where we're fixtures that relentless at the moment. Will Eddie Howe still play a strong team? Maybe. Doesn't give up games easily, but might be one of those where we're fixtures we've got coming up where we could have a potential Champions League playoff after we play Villa. And obviously we've got Villa in the Cup. That's a tough game. And you're just thinking we've got either side of that, Brentford at home and Liverpool away. I'm just thinking, would Eddie Howe best be playing a reserve team? Keep the legs fresh maybe for bigger games? Because, look, I think we'll hold on this trophy is going. It's sad, it's going to hurt seeing Arsenal, Chelsea or City lift that trophy at Wembley, but even me, I think it's impossible. I can't see us turning the tie around. And look, how do I think how some of the players went in that game? Well, Lewis Hall, man of the match. I felt Joe Linton was good as well. Nick Pope couldn't do anything about the goals. Chow and Botman on the whole dealt with Haaland well. Again, he didn't score. Lewis Miley, he was all right. He grew into the game later, but he wasn't as composed on the ball as he normally is, and he was troubled by Doku's pace. I felt Doku was really good for them. That's what I mean. I wish, like, out of the wingers, they've got players like Cherki and Doku, and we've signed Elanga. I mean, someone compared it before, an excellent, hilarious comparison. They said Elanga and Semenyo or Doku is like comparing Michael Flatley with the Geordie Dancer or the Macamover, and that's accurate, honestly. But Lewis Hall, like I've covered, outstanding. Miley obviously grew into the game but had a tough time up against Doku's pace, where he wasn't as good as lately, but he's a tricky customer. Bruno was available for the ball like Ramsey. They both tried to make things happen, but it just wasn't their night. Maybe a game too far. But then Joe Linton, I felt he had the bark aggressiveness, the bite. He got the yellow card for his tussle with O'Reilly. Front three, Gordon was marked out the game. Barnes didn't really affect it when he came on. Murphy, frustrating. He doesn't go up for 50-50s. He bottles a lot of challenges. And I said he's a player on instinct. When he's not relying on instinct, putting the ball in first time or taking a shot on sight, he can't really take on his man. Some of his passing sloppy and his game really breaks down. Wissa, poor game. should have took his chances. And it's another one of those games where you're thinking it goes back to the window. We're paid the price for not having a director of football in. I mean, you come on to Nick Voltemada. Nick Voltemada started really well, but teams have figured him out. They've realised if you've got two strong, robust centre-halves, or if you drop a little bit deep, he's not going to be running in behind you. And yesterday showed again that if you get around him, he doesn't control the ball well. He needs to improve that in his game. And he also never wins anything aerially. And it goes back to a damaging summer window. Look, I want Voltemada and Wissa to come good. That's the price of our success at the moment. We have like a game every 3 or 4 days. He hasn't had time on the training ground with them. But you look at the likes of Semenyo, who's just slotted straight in. And then you look at Elanga, who looks like he's just won a competition to be a footballer. And he was terrible last night. He had a Toblerone foot. Nothing that he touched came off. Everything ricocheted off him. He looks like he doesn't even belong there. Where's the Anthony Elanga who terrorised teams when he was playing for Nottingham Forest? When he came here and they won 3-1 on Boxing Day, Chris Wood's hat-trick, he was excellent that day. Where's that player we've signed? And like I said, you want Wissa and Voltemada to come good and Elanga. But so far, Malik Chow's been the only good signing of this window. And it looks like £170 million wasted. And we know we need another left back in because Lewis Hall can play there really well, or he could even step up into midfield on the left wing if we ended up selling Gordon. And then you need another striker and a creative midfielder to unlock teams, which we don't have when we're like the onus is on us to break teams down, which we can't do. So that means in this window to either get a left back in and a centre back, or do you keep your powder dry and go again in the summer? But the German press said it, didn't they? Voltemada as a 10, and he excelled on Saturday. He was brilliant there, but let's be honest, he's not a striker. When he was playing in that number 10 behind Wissa on Saturday, well, Wissa didn't play well, Voltemada did, and he's outside the foot pass for Barnes, showed that works. But Wissa seems to work well, even though he's only scored 2 in 9 games. 4-3-3 position, he was meant to be the player who came straight in, a little bit of the same profile as Isak, who would slot straight in and continue as we were. But Eddie Howe, if he wants to get the best out of both players, he has to switch to a 4-2-3-1 with Voltemada behind Wissa. But he admitted as much on Saturday that we're too open and he didn't like it, so he probably won't do that again. So it leaves the anomaly. What do we do with Johan Wissa and Voltemada? I mean, we've spent so much on them. You've got to be playing these players. You've got to be playing them. Otherwise, what's the point in having them there? And yeah, like I said, we've got to get a creative player and a striker, but that's probably not going to happen till the summer. And then I come back to the elephant in the room, Anthony Elanga. It does look like he's just won a competition off the back of a cornflakes packet, because I've tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, and he may be another player long term that when it comes to a pre-season, him, Voltemada and Wissa, time where Eddie Howe, they'll come good. I'd love them to, but we're halfway through the season now, give or take. We're halfway through January this Friday. So my assessment is Malik Chow's been a good signing of the window so far. The others haven't been good enough. And that's frustrating. It just feels like we're fighting way through games. We're not dominating them. We don't feel like the same team. It feels like we might have taken a step back. Obviously, the saga in the summer didn't happen when Isak went on strike. The ideal scenario would have been get rid of the rat and then bring in Hugo Ekitike. And then that would have worked out well. But even if we had Isak last night or Ekitike, we would have won that game. But at the moment, it's just not happening. And Bruno, Arfield and Harvey Barnes of late have been carrying the front line. Everything that he tried to touch last night just went out to play. Apart from the little knockback to Tonali for the shot, he was shocking. But yeah, all I can say is it's a big job on his hands for Ross Wilson, because we had a good window signing good players up until this summer, and now we're recruitment. You can see the disaster it was. It's fallen off a cliff. Malik Chow being the only good signing, but let's just hope they come good, because we are still, as it stands, in 4 competitions, though I don't think, in all honesty, we're getting to Wembley now in this competition. But anyway, that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, please comment, please subscribe. And I'll be back after our game on Sunday at Wolves. I know they've had a bit of a resurgence lately. They've got the first win against West Ham. I'm glad they beat West Ham. You don't want to be the team who loses to them first. And yeah, they went through in the FA Cup. But look, it's a team we should be going to and beaten. So we need to park cup competitions to one side for the moment and concentrate back on the league. But thanks so much for watching. Once again, take care. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Bye-bye.